Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame, automate the hunt. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/PSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter at times too. Hey, we're back. We're just telling really bad dad jokes.
Yeah, you know why you can't play poker in the jungle?
Why?
Too many cheetahs.
So I do have an announcement. Welcome back to Pulse Security Weekly. We're here with the regular cast and crew. Larry Pesci is here, Joff Thayer, and Keith Hulda are on the lines via Skype. We just released the 2018 listener survey. Go to securityweekly.com/survey. That's right, we're asking for your feedback for two reasons. One, we want to make sure that the programming on this entire network is suited to you. So you tell us what you like, what you'd like to see here on the network, and we'll do our best to make that happen. Also, we're trying to figure out how people consume the show, what content they're interested in, a little bit about you anonymously, of course. We don't collect anyone's data unless you want to give us your data and have a conversation with us afterwards to talk about where you'd like to see the network go. A little bit about you anonymously so that we can better align sponsors, not just for the sponsors, but for you, the listeners. So I think it's a win all around for everyone.
Absolutely.
If you go fill out the survey at securityweekly.com/survey, I promise that we're GDPR compliant. We destroy everyone's data. We keep it as anonymous as possible. The whole thing.
I've taken it, and it takes maybe 5 at most 10 minutes.
Sure, right?
Honestly, it's very small and matters quite a bit to us. So
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
also,
my wife says that a lot.
Wow.
The small part.
And Paul, just recently I took a survey about beavers. Best damn survey I ever took.
You got me with that one.
Yeah.
Damn it.
That's also what she said.
Wow.
Yesterday I gave away all my discharged batteries. Free of charge.
What a guy.
We should get Jeff on, because I know that Jeff happens to have, or at least when I was there, he happened to have a very good dad jokes book. So we should get him back on to talk about that.
Yeah,
at some point.
I want that. Oh, I think I just burnt my... Sorry.
I
apologize to our listeners for making all that ridiculous noise. I just burnt my microphone pop filter. Anyway, that's a frequent occurrence. We have to replace these pretty often because I burn them a lot.
Yeah, you touch them with your lips,
Larry,
because you're so hot.
Let's talk about WPA3.
Oh, here it goes. WPA3, baby.
Yeah.
Mwah! It's just...
Magnifique! It's not so much.
It's beautiful.
No, it's not.
No? What is wrong with W? Everyone is excited. All right.
Yeah.
People that write articles and publish them to sites on the internet are really excited about WPA3, Larry.
Why?
That is my question to you, my friend.
Here's my thing. WPA3 is designed by the Wi-Fi Alliance. It's created by the Wi-Fi Alliance.
As was WPA2.
The WPA and WPA2, they did have some input from the IEEE. It wasn't solely a Wi-Fi Alliance thing.
What about WEP?
I don't... that was an IEEE thing.
Okay.
That's where Wi-Fi Alliance started, in that vendors were implementing WEP differently. And the Wi-Fi Alliance became a consumer protection agency
to make sure
make sure that everyone was implementing it so that they would all work together.
Be equally as insecure and horrible.
At the time, it was
for WEP. Sure. Right.
But the fact was that Wi-Fi Alliance at the time of WEP, because all the vendors were implementing WEP differently, basically became the certification body to say,
the standards
you
body.
You have WEP,
right?
Well, it's certification body.
Oh, okay.
Not a standards
Not
body.
even just but you had to certify that
Yeah,
your product was
certified. We'll put our stamp on it. It says you're certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance.
You're
If
certifiably insecure by running web.
Your D-Link and your Linksys will work together with this common feature set.
You'll be
doing these things.
unilaterally insecure with web, is what they were saying at the time.
Exactly.
Got
Well, you are unilaterally secure at the time. Now unilaterally
Insecure.
Right.
Right.
So
And your insecurity would cross multiple vendors and
Yes.
be the same level of insecurity.
Yes.
Yes, I got you. I'm with you, Larry. Let's do this.
So the Wi-Fi Alliance has moved into a larger role when they started specifying standards. And WPA, WPA2, that standard was specified in conjunction with the IEEE.
Mhm.
They built some stuff. They took a 5-year period for WPA to WPA2 to fix all the issues with WPA, TKIP, and so forth. Also in there, the Wi-Fi Alliance introduced their new certification standard to make doing WPA, WPA2 pre-share key networks easier for consumers.
Now, I have a question on that, and I know we've talked about this on the show before. If you and I are both on the same WPA pre-shared secret PSK,
Pre-share key network, yep.
pre-shared key network, and it's WPA2, right?
Yep.
And you and I both know what the key is.
Yep.
We can't decrypt each other's traffic.
Unless I capture your four-way handshake. Because
gotcha.
your keys used to encrypt your traffic are different than my keys.
Yes.
Because we exchange unique
because
nonsense.
of math, right?
Because
Yeah,
of
yeah,
math,
math,
unique
right.
numbers, individual per client AP relationship.
So you
your
can if you capture my four-way handshake.
Exactly.
Which is pretty easy to do.
Yes. In that I just deauth you, you join again, and then I get all your future traffic. I can't catch past traffic.
Yeah.
I can catch it
Forward.
forward from.
But also, if you have some kind of Wi-Fi protections in place, can it protect against that?
Well, define Wi-Fi protections, and what are you trying to protect against?
If you're
DOS?
trying to protect against you, I don't want you to sniff my traffic, even though we have the same pre-shared secret.
Sure. How do you prevent someone from sniffing your Wi-Fi? You put it in an underground bunker,
Yeah,
and you prevent the wireless signal from escaping your facility.
Okay.
Then you have to protect it against
because you
folks
have
in your
access
facility.
to essentially the physical
The
medium.
physical medium, the RF.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I got
You can prevent against DOS.
you.
And that was 802.11w, which does you have to have some an additional pre-shared key so that you only accept deauths at the client from known hosts.
So you can protect against
You
DOS.
can.
Okay.
The problem is there are at least 3 other methods for doing deauths
Oh yeah, right. Oh, I
that
remember.
aren't supported by 802.11w.
Yeah, because again, it's back to that access to the physical medium. If
Right.
I can take out the physical medium,
Yep.
if I can jam the channel,
Jam the channel,
Yep.
and then use 2
because there was that card. Well, that card that's sitting over there.
Yep.
Yep. In the
the,
middle.
the SMC card.
Yeah.
The 200 milliwatt
sure.
SMC card. Yep,
Okay.
with the FCC test utility.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, it all,
I'm
it
with
all
you
comes
now.
back in.
I'm with you now.
All right. So
now
WPA3.
That we've. I like that we talked a little bit about
Some
kind
of
of
the
the
history.
past, some of the history.
Wi-Fi Alliance introduced this new standard certification standard to make it easier for folks to use pre-shared key networks. It's called WPS. You may have heard of it.
yes. That's
It's
the one.
fucking horribly broken.
Okay. So now we're more on the consumer side, where
Yes.
I'm a consumer. I'm not a security practitioner. I'm not a network engineer, right? Or like in IT, right? And then, but I've got this device like a laptop, and I've got an access point, and I need to be able to push a button on the access point.
Or
and,
instead of having to remember the 63 character string,
Mhm.
I need something simple.
That's just
Like
gonna,
that's printed right on the access point. That's 8 digits.
But the 8 digits is not your pre-shared key, right?
Correct.
That's
If you
kind of like the seed for WPS.
If you do the 8 shared digits, it then does a Diffie-Hellman exchange to then create an encrypted tunnel to send you the pre-shared key in plain text.
Okay. That's
Now,
all coming back to me now.
The problem is with WPS, as designed by the Wi-Fi Alliance, without input from the IEEE or the IETF or lots of smart folks,
other standards,
other standards bodies. The problem is that they use an 8-digit pin. 8-digit pin. Digit, no number, no letters,
Gotcha.
Wow.
no special characters, numbers only, which is 10 to the 8th. which is 100 million possible combinations.
So that's not brute forceable at all.
Well, 100 million possible combinations. Joff, let's make it easier. The way WPS pins are handled is that they take that pin and they divide it into 2 4-digit parts.
Did they not read the LM specification?
It sounds like Landman.
But it gets better. So that becomes 10 to the 4th plus 10 to the 4th, and they tell you which half you got wrong. So that is now 20,000 possible guesses. But wait, there's more.
I love hacking.
But wait, there's more.
It's
the second half of that pin, the 4th digit, is a checksum value. So it becomes effectively 10 to the 4th plus 10 to the 3rd or 11,000 possible guesses.
And in this case, Larry, I love math.
And I love math too, and that's math I can do, right? But so this is a certification standard that that the Wi-Fi Alliance developed.
I love that you explained why WPS is so horribly broken.
Yes,
in very simple, plain terms. Math, I can understand.
And this leads up to WPA3.
Okay, I love this.
WPA3.
I'm so excited right now, Larry. You can smell it.
Oh my God, you're so moist. I can hear the waves crashing in your crotch.
It's so exciting. Love these conversations.
So,
I was so excited to have this conversation with you on the show
so
about WPA3.
WPA3 is a certification standard developed by the Wi-Fi Alliance, independent of the IEEE and the IETF.
And historically, now we know how that goes.
Historically, we know how that goes.
Okay.
Now, WPA3...
But it's got a 3.
And
surely
3 is better than 2.
3 is better than 2, yes.
But is it? So
it's next gen. It's absolutely better.
But the WPA3...
3 of a kind beats a pair. I know that much, right? Every time.
So the big deal with WPA3 is that they introduce 4 specific things into the certification standard. And I want to make sure that's clear. The certification standard. It is not a technical specification or a technical standard. If you want your device to be WPA3 certified, you have to do these things. And they introduced 4 things.
Wait, you got to do these things, but you have to pay the money to get it certified?
Yes, you have to pay the money to get certified so that you can say your thing is WPA3 compatible with everybody else's WPA3 compatible.
I got you.
So here's the 4 things. They do simultaneous authentication of equals, in addition to the standard pre-shared key 4-way handshake. So you're simultaneously authenticating the device that you're connecting to is in fact the device you're supposed to be connecting to. The intent is to reduce man-in-the-middle based attacks. Mm-hmm. They then ultimately implement through that simultaneous authentication of equals perfect forward secrecy, PFS, so that if you have a session, you'll never be able to decrypt that session based on that the keys are constantly rotating type of thing.
Yep.
That's good. Making the pre-shared key resistant to offline cracking, like we have with WPA2. WPA pre-shared.
So theoretically, in WPA3, cow patty is not an option, even if I capture that 4-way handshake.
Correct.
I can't derive the key.
So you need to you need to capture the 4-way handshake and the SAE handshake.
Ew.
Yes.
And how feasible is it to?
But it's all in the air in clear text.
Okay.
And I don't remember the algorithm that they chose for SAE, the simultaneous authentication of equals. It is one. It starts with a P, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. It is one that was determined to be have some issues based on maths, and was actually rejected by the U.S. federal government because of issues with maths.
Well, that's possibly just as likely that they rejected it because it wasn't readily crackable.
No, this was for adoption for FIPS 140-2 certification. So wouldn't have wanted it easily crackable. Number 2, they replaced WPS with DPP or Device Provisioning Protocol, which is fairly simple, which they refer to as, and I quote, simplified secure configuration and onboarding for devices with limited or no display interface. That's
sounds like
DPB provides secure key exchange methods using QR codes, passwords, NFC, or Bluetooth.
Okay.
So how did their last design of something like that go? WPS.
Bad.
Poorly.
Not so well.
Not so well. They also provide the ability to do unauthenticated encryption with opportunistic wireless encryption, or OWE. So the ability to do encryption without exchange of keys previously for something like hotspots.
How does that work?
Diffie-Hellman, anonymous encryption, anonymous-based encryption, a four-way handshake in conjunction with exchange of Diffie-Hellman keys.
Who's the key master?
Exactly.
Great question, Josh. Great.
Exactly.
Great. Dude, that was on point,
And
dude.
that was on
point.
And that said, opportunist wireless encryption still does not prevent from man-in-the-middle based attacks. Just stand up your own access point with lower security, get the clients to join there at the hotspot, and then Bob's your uncle.
Hello, downgrade.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even necessarily a downgrade. You just get them to connect to you, which doesn't offer those services, period.
Yeah, it's not even down because they're not really checking to see if it's a downgrade.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Then they offer the ability for additional encryption types with enhanced key spaces using SHA-384, 384-bit curve ECC, elliptic curve cryptography, so forth and so on. But here's the kicker. They say there are 4 things in the certification standard. You only need to implement simultaneous authentication of equals to be certified.
What?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay, so basically everybody could be WPA2 with SAE and that's it?
Yep.
They're WPA3?
Yep. There you go.
I'm calling BS right here at 5:67, 8:03 p.m. Eastern Time on July 12th, 2018. BS.
Thank you, Keith. I rest my case. The prosecution rests, as it were. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. They could have done some really great things had they had the opportunity to work with mathematicians and cryptographers and put this under scrutiny and so forth. And they say, you got to do all these things. No, wait, no, you don't got to do all these things. You just got to do one to be certified and put this new WPA3 logo on your stuff. As certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance.
Honestly, I was sitting here thinking to myself, God, you guys are mathletes, because it's way over my head, right? and then you just say that, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. I'm not a mathlete. I'm reading from my SANS slide that I submitted 2 days ago. Fair.
Okay. Hey, man.
Which, ironically enough, probably got more scrutiny than this WPA3 standard did.
More than likely, because Josh read it.
Yeah, and I read. You know what? The defense rests.
Yes.
Oh boy.
So Josh has blessed your slide, which is more validation than WPA3 has received.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
So how much do we charge to have Josh set up your Wi-Fi in your home network again? Like, what is that running cost?
Sushi, because willhackforsushi.com is his website.
There you go.
Perfect.
And there's a reason for that, because he kept forgetting to invoice his clients and would just go out for the big sushi dinner at the end.
Nice.
That's really pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. So that's WPA3 in an overly large nutshell.
Wow. I don't even know where to segue from there, dude, because
It's hard to go from there. It
that
really is.
was epic. I can transition to average cost of a data breach.
Oh,
That'd be
God.
great.
Paul, why? Why? It's Pokemon.
Oh, that's so depressing.
I'm going to tell you why, for all those reasons and more.
And Paul, I did add some stories to the show notes. It's not nearly as much as I expected because my copy and paste failed big time. I copied the same story 4 times. I lost the original, but
must
I have
been a really important story.
It was. Not really.
So not only do they quote Ponymon, but they also put a number on it.
Where's Jack?
Right?
Where is Jack, by the way?
Oh, on Tinder? No, not anymore. He's
preparing for B-Sides Las
not
Vegas.
anymore. Well, I don't know if he necessarily wants that to be.
Well, it was a public Facebook status update, so...
Okay.
Jack is no longer on Tinder.
He is, well, in a relationship, whether he's on Tinder or not, I'm not sure.
Sure,
Maybe Grindr, who knows? I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm
No
not
judge,
judging.
no judge,
Whatever,
no judge.
No judging.
No
Whatever
judging.
you know.
And that said,
whatever makes you happy.
That
And
said,
as long
Jack-
as Jack is happy, I'm happy for Jack.
Jack, if you're out there listening, we're happy for you.
Yes.
And you know, we're happy.
We love him.
Okay, so but
we never expect you to move on, but we expect you to continue.
What?
You know, it's funny. Speaking of Jack, by the way, I was at my grandmother's last weekend.
I thought
and
we
she
were
had-
talking
Whoa,
about data breaches. What is going on now?
Ponemon and Jack and now Keith's grandma.
So it's not what you think. I was there helping her with a moving sale, and she was selling these, you know, all of her different things that she was getting rid of. And I found this coffee mug that I sent to Jack, and it's got a likeness of Jack on it, and on it says, "Father Time can still kick the crap out of you." So hopefully we'll get some pictures of Jack with that at some point, with his newfound, love interests or what have you. So
Awesome.
there's that.
I saw a shirt that made me think of Jack. I was at the Orlando airport yesterday.
I still want to talk about the average.
You will. And
Eventually.
and there was a gentleman wearing a shirt, and the back of it said, it had a picture of Abraham Lincoln with a big beer, and it said, "Abolish shavery." And I thought of Jack, because this guy had an epic beard as well as Jack.
Oh my
So-
God, you have to get him that shirt.
So, data breaches, Paul.
Data
What was the number?
breaches.
What was the number?
I haven't quite lost control of the
3.86
show.
million.
I lost temporary control. I think I'm getting back. So the average cost of a data breach exceeds. They put a number on it: $3.8 million.
3.1 million.
That's the average.
How did they
cost.
collect this data?
It doesn't even matter, Keith. It's a great
Keith,
question.
Keith is channeling Jack. How did they collect this data?
It's a great question. It doesn't even matter because it's not about. We understand there are direct monetary costs to a breach. However, and we understand too that it doesn't necessarily impact the stock price, right? I think what's more interesting to me when we analyze these breaches are, a public perception, whether it impacts your bottom line or not. The trust factor is big. Also, I think morale in your own company, like your employees can get the sense that they've failed when your company suffers a data breach. And I think that weighs heavily on your culture, which may lead to employees leaving that particular organization. It could, cost you in other ways in other business dealings. And I think that a lot of these studies that try and put a number on it aren't taking into account all of those different factors that go into what I really like to deem as the impact of a breach. And it's not just all about the bottom line, because numbers and math, you can hide things in math. You
big
can
time.
take into account certain factors that may have a monetary impact and certain ones that don't. Like, sure, there's the direct cost of the breach, like we had to hire this company, right? But what are some of those indirect costs? Like employees that work there left.
The capital versus
indirect costs, I guess you could call them, right, Larry? It's kind of like, well, morale got low after we had a breach, and it, like pretty much after the dust settled, our security team left, our developers left. We had to replace those. What are those ongoing costs? I think, and that's going to differ for every organization. And certainly, the more public organizations, probably more along the lines of 3.8 million.
And I will testify to some of that. I had a former coworker of mine who worked for me in healthcare. Many years after the TJX breach, shortly thereafter, I think I talked about this. TJX approached me, looking to hire me to go help them clean up their shit, at like 3 times my current salary at the time, which was not insignificant. And I considered jumping at it and realized that I'd be there 18 months and have everything fixed, and I'd be the high guy on the totem pole, and they'd fire me. I'm like, nope, that's not how I want to go, and I didn't play that game. 3 years later. Almost 4 years later, one of my former employees called me and said, "Hey, would you provide a reference for me?" Absolutely. Where are you going? He says, "I'm looking to go to TJX, and they're going to pay me 3 times my current salary to go help them clean up their." Yeah. This is 4 years later. Like,
so
the cost is strange, Keith.
the thing that I get at though, Paul, is right. 3.86 million for who? Right. So this study, as the article citing, I'm citing the article, right? 500 companies that were hit in a mega breach. So these were known breaches.
And mega breaches.
Mega breaches that they're qualifying from 1 million records, upwards of 50 million or more records lost. Now, the problem here that I see with all of this, right, is these are known breaches. So they've been reported and publicly made known. So you already have some bias.
And
then, and then on top of that, only 3.86 million as the average across 500 companies that are mega breaches. That sounds way too low to me. I mean, so I don't have a degree in statistics, but I definitely taught it in college. And I'll tell you, there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. And in this case, I can tell you right now, 3.86 million is probably not the average, but it sure sounds nice the way they put it.
No, Keith, I will say that 3.86 million is probably statistics.
Probably. Yeah.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's probably statistics.
I think that Keith summed it up nicely.
Yep.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Keith, summarize our entire point in one succinct sentence. So I want to talk about, regardless of which Linux distribution you've chosen to use as your distribution of choice. Maybe we'll have time to talk about kind of my decision as to what platform I'm going to use. I'm largely Linux and Android for most of my computing devices. My desktop computer here in the office is still an iMac. It's getting a little old at this point. I think it's beyond the 3-year mark.
No comment.
At this point.
No comment as I sit here on my MacBook Pro 13-inch early 2011.
Well, that's cool. I'm
fucking rocking it.
Yeah,
and it's working.
Yeah, and I've gone through my share of Chromebooks and other laptops and things like that. But I think for a desktop computing device, for something you're going to sit at every day, certainly in your office, probably isn't something from 2011, Larry.
It is.
Is it really?
Seriously, I use this machine all day, every day.
That's awesome. Awesome.
And I saw the new specs on the new Macs, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And I can spend $3,800 on a machine that has a Core i9 that's bigger than the one I have with 30. Wait, if I get the 13, it's 16.
Yeah, 32 gigabytes of RAM for the 15-inch i6s or something. And it's like
i9s.
But here's the problem.
No, is there?
Hold
on. It's i9.
i9.
So not i7, not i8, but i9.
i9, 32 gigs, 1 terabyte drive, $3,800
for a laptop. Now, what I found was interesting. So screw the story. What I find was interesting.
It was such a good story. It hurt my heart a little bit.
All right, we'll get back to it. But now we're just going to nerd out on computing. What I found today was I looked at it. Whatever your kind of standard, like it was actually on Amazon, not an Apple site, but the new iMac Pro, which is a Xeon processor set, right? It was something like I don't remember the exact number. So let's just say it was like $4,000, right, for the Apple Xeon processor, 32 gigs of RAM, a specific graphics card chipset, right, in a 27-inch display. And is that a 5K or 4K?
4K.
It's a 4K display, which is important to this conversation. It was about $4,000, right? And I was like, wow, that's kind of like that's expensive. Like, let me go try and build a similar like Linux system and see what I come up with. And when you start stuffing Xeon processors with the graphics cards and all that stuff, I was coming up with like $5,000. And it wasn't even a 4K display. It was a 2K display, which for me is not a huge issue, right? Because I'm not, again, as I've said it before, like John and Mark and team, they do all the video and audio editing, so I don't have to worry about those requirements anymore, which is kind of nice. So I don't need to like render high definition video and worry about having that display. I'm not doing gaming either, so
same.
You know what I mean, right? And I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. So I'm like, which direction do I go? It really comes down to features at that point, and I don't know. I'm kind of torn as to where I'm going to go. I kind of like the Linux and the nerd in me wants to be like, yeah, I want to leave Apple's ecosystem pretty much at this point altogether. Keith, you've talked about issues you've had with macOS updates. And I didn't see them in previous releases. However, in very recent times, I'd say the past few months, I've noticed some really heinous issues with macOS updates that are really like super frustrating for me. Where I'm like, you know what? I can't use Windows. I mean, and Microsoft's doing a great job with Windows OS. I just can't use Windows. macOS was a great middle ground, and now I'm kind of gravitating towards, well, my phone's Android. I've got a laptop at home that's Linux. I've got my laptop I carry around with me all the time that's Linux. I'm like, I just need to make my desktop Linux, and that's kind of where I'm going at this point.
Paul, I'm with you. If you look at my backpack right now, aside from my work laptop, that's mandated by the company. I enjoy using it. You name it. My current laptop. We're going on vacation Saturday. My laptop includes my mid 2011 MacBook Pro. It includes a Chromebook running Linux. And the foldable Windows 10 laptop.
Do you have a Surface or just a laptop?
It's a laptop, but it's a convertible. So
it's like a Yoga, like a Lenovo Yoga.
It is. It's a Lenovo Yoga type deal. Yep, exactly. So it's the Lenovo Yoga that you saw. And it's a 12-inch laptop. This is a 13, and the Chromebook is between. It's like a 12-inch.
Right.
And those are my preferred machines. And I bring real hardware for real stuff. Because if I want to do software-defined radio stuff, sometimes real hardware, even though it is not the most powerful, is the best.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, you said that right. I mean, you cannot do that kind of.
You can't do a lot of stuff like that virtually, right? Yeah,
you can, but it's
buggy, right?
It's not the best, and I'd sometimes you need real hardware.
What I learned very early on, in that particular area is USB buses, bridging across to
VM
virtual machines just die under load. When you're dealing with your software-defined radio devices.
Yeah, so software-defined radio, the best is both Windows and Linux, mostly Linux, which is why I have real hardware for both of those, because both of them feature USB 3. This pig does not.
Yeah.
So
it's 7 years old there.
Yeah, that's the sad part about the new announcements for the new MacBook Pros is they have discontinued the 2015 MacBook Pro Retinas, which, in my opinion, that's what I'm on right now, is the developer edition MacBook Pro USB 3s. I mean, it's got plenty of ports to make things usable.
Swappable hard drive.
Solid state. Yeah, that's the only problem with it is soldered in hard drive, but terabyte solid state. I still haven't filled it up after almost a year, 2 years on this thing. So.
So to that, I have a terabyte solid state in this bootable. It's getting close to full, and I removed the optical to put spinning disk. I took the original 500 gig spinning disk in place of the optical, and I'm about ready to switch that to a terabyte SSD.
Yeah, and external drives these days are getting better.
Well, it's internal, and this will last me another 3 years.
Well, and that's why I switched to a Linux laptop was. I can swap out hard drives. I've got on some of them. Actually, on both of them, I have an Ethernet port. That's on board. And to me, that stuff was more important. I can survive on a Linux laptop without question. It's worked phenomenal for me. I think I'm ready to take the plunge where I'm just going to leave Apple's ecosystem really altogether. And at one time, I was a huge fan. I mean, my whole tweet, like whatever Steve Jobs holds up,
I'll buy 2 of them.
I'm buying 2 of them, dude. Like one for me, one for my family.
No, 2 for me.
2 for me, even.
Yeah,
right?
I'm a believer that there, Paul, as well. I actually did take the plunge and stayed with the cult of the Apple for a little bit longer for work, but no, it was difficult to justify that really and not go straight to the Linux direction. The only challenge was, and I've historically had this, and I think you probably have this little bit of a reservation as well, and that is, when it comes to pure desktop applications, is everything absolutely there in Linux that you need?
I'm right there with you, Joff and Larry. Like, we're close, and I think that there's...
So close.
So for our listeners, there's 2 areas. One that directly relates to the show and how we prepare, right? Like, my RSS reader has to be like super usable, super fast, and has to have certain integrations for me to do my job. as the host of, in co-host of all the shows on the network, probably with the exception of Secure Digital Life and Tradecraft Security Weekly, right? Like, I've got to find content or be able to supplement content for the other hosts on the shows. Largely, I use the RSS reader for that, and I'm evaluating RSS readers on Linux. In the past couple of years, I think it's gotten a little better. The other one is I'm an audiophile, as many of our listeners know.
Linux, fantastic for that.
I was joking earlier on a previous show.
No, seriously.
Like, we really should have an extra insurance rider really just for my headphone collection. But but that breeds with it, right? Like, I've got a lot of special amps that I use, some analog, some digital, some USB, some analog connections, but also the software. So it's all about, to deviate from security for a little bit, right?
I think this is valuable because we're talking software stack.
But it's all about, and I think, this lesson certainly lends itself to performance and in other things in IT, right? It's all about your kind of like your value chain, right, as we call it. In an audio, it's all about your audio chain. So the quality that you've ripped the CD into digital format matters. The software you're using to play those files matters. Your cable, and when you reach a certain level in an audio file capacity, your cables actually do matter because all of the things that surround it are higher quality. So your cables have to be higher quality. Your amplifier has to be higher quality. Your cable that connects your amplifier to your headphone has to be higher quality. Your headphones are higher quality. So that whole chain, like every piece in that chain...
Remind me to teach you about electrons later.
...matters. On inexpensive headphones with inexpensive amplifiers, cables do not matter. When you upgrade to audiophile quality headphones and amplifiers, you can hear the difference between cables.
Until you start talking digital, and then it doesnn't matter whether it's copper or gold.
Yeah, but you typically always have an analog connection.
You may, and that's it. Good quality connectors matter.
Oh, the connectors have to match the cable too. I don't still go buy cheap connectors. Like, if I have a high quality cable, I have to go buy a very high quality. That's part of your chain, right?
There are some points where the monster cable thing takes off, and it is supported in the fact that there are some definite things with the quality of the connectors compared to the cable versus, oh my god, we do a gold cable. No, electrons travel just as well over gold or copper. It doesn't matter.
So, yeah, but you also got to throw silver in there too, which
doesn't matter. It's a conductive.
So getting back to the year of Linux on the desktop.
Either way,
right? No, whether you're doing audiophile stuff or otherwise.
We have digressed. We have digressed.
This is really sad because for me, I use Arch Linux on an Acer C720 Chromebook for traveling, which is like 11.3 inch, less than 2 pound, 12-hour battery life.
Yes.
And this story breaks my heart.
Arch Linux.
Oh, yeah, back to security. I'll argue all day on the cable issue there because it matters. Anyway.
It does. I agree. It matters, but I don't think it matters where you think it does.
It matters for when you've when you've had that investment in all of the other areas.
You're fooling yourself.
It matters.
You're fooling yourself.
I am not.
So what really matters though is being able to read your PDFs.
Without getting
especially if you're in business, Paul. I mean, you must have PDFs all day long. So how are you going to do that on your Linux system?
I love reading PDFs. I mean, it is my favorite pastime.
You should send Paul PDFs.
Love PDFs. If you send me PDFs, I will open them with a really old copy of Windows XP, and it'll be epic.
That's a great idea.
So
when secretly he's opening them in VI.
Yeah. As long as you're not opening them on Arch Linux, story number 6 under the show notes, you're okay. But it sounds like someone has poisoned the water hole. I don't know if anyone wants to expound on this further.
Well, and this is my concern. I think one of my greatest security concerns moving forward is kind of along these lines, right? And that is whether it's I think in this case, I think it still shares the same concern, right? Like, you're maintaining an operating system or some kind of distribution, right? And while those core components might be secure, you're including other components which may not be secure. So if you're maintaining Arch Linux and you've got to maintain this package for a PDF reader, right? Because we need to read PDFs, and someone poisons that package. I think poisons is probably
an appropriate word.
An appropriate word for this, right? That package becomes poisoned. How do you know? How do you validate that when your PDF reader is just one small component in your overall architecture? And Keith, you and I talk about this every week now, I feel like, on Application Security Weekly.
Yep.
Where you've got your primary development framework in Node.js, but you're including these other components. We talk about the Chrome web browser, in that the core components may be secure. However, someone's poisoned an add-on. We've talked about it in WordPress, where, well, in that case, the core components of WordPress are pretty vulnerable. The underlying architecture in PHP is pretty vulnerable. And then you compound upon that the add-ons or plugins for that system are really vulnerable as well.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is, how do you know, right? How do you validate that someone has poisoned it when you get some kind of update? The other concerning thing for me, and the reason I had this story, is, like, how do you know that someone has even fixed some kind of vulnerability in this system? Like, how do you even identify a security issue and prioritize that patching? In other words, like, you've got this system and it's got add-ons, and maybe someone, and maybe it's open source add-ons, a developer has fixed something in that add-on or open source component. Maybe they don't even know that there were security ramifications to that. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't want to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of different scenarios there. In other words, they fixed something, but they haven't identified it as a security vulnerability. So when you're applying patches, you're like, well, okay, none of these were flagged as security, so I'm going to put this off for 6 months to a year, or never apply the patch because it's not security related.
Some other things I want to point out, that this whole poisoning the water hole thing is not a new concept, and I got bit by this not that long ago. And how do you know when something has happened? It was a year and a half or so that Handbrake posted a new update, and I was in literally that day rebuilding a system to put Handbrake on for video conversion, and I downloaded the new version, and one of their two mirrors had gotten popped and supplanted with malware, and the supplanted with malware harvested Chrome browser, stored passwords and all this crazy stuff. And it was that one day at that 6 hour period where I installed Handbrake, and I just got unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you know?
This is all part of the architectural problem too, though, right? It's the pull model as opposed to the push model, right? Like you literally have to pull down your code from open source or pull down Handbrake, right? And you don't know if you're getting the good version or not unless you're pulling down the code directly and compiling it directly.
Nope. And even then, how do you know the source code hasn't been poisoned?
True.
Well, that's right. I mean, this level of paranoia can go deeper and deeper and deeper, right? I mean, the old days.
How do you know your compiler hasn't been poisoned?
That's exactly right.
Trust.
Don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know, and compilers have been poisoned in the past. And you could go back to, for example, being as paranoid as running Gen 2 Linux and having to compile everything.
Mm.
But are you really going to sit down and read the source code? And are you really going to do the research to check that your compiler has not been poisoned?
Well, but here's the thing, Joff. Even if you
this conversation has gone to the point that Paul has lit his balls on fire.
Yeah, I have. It was between that and the cable conversation that I'm like literally fired up, because I'm like literally on fire and fired up all at the same time. But we're having a conversation with someone, and they were in a previous show this week, and they were saying something about, like, even if you do have access to the source code, when you do a source code review, like, you essentially have to, like, it was with Farouk Mavatuna on Enterprise Security Weekly. Like, you have to compile that code, like, in your head to understand, like, what the potential security vulnerabilities might be. Like, sure, you can base it on system call, but that's why static analysis tools have so many false positives, because it's not in any kind of context. So you have to, like, compile that code and understand it as you go. Not to mention that you're looking at other people's code. And I don't know about everyone else, but code that I wrote yesterday, if I look at today, I have no idea why I wrote it the way I did, right? No idea. Yep. No idea. Now, yesterday may be an extreme example, but
not really.
Even if you not really, but if you read your own code from, a week ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, several months ago, a year ago, you're going to go through varying levels of struggling to understand what it did. Never mind reading someone else's goddamn code and trying to figure out what that's going to never mind what it does, but what the potential security vulnerabilities are. And now I want to turn over to Joff because I can tell he's chomping at the bit because I know this is an issue very near and dear to his heart about finding vulnerabilities in code. It's hard though, Joff, no?
It is very, very hard. The way that most penetration testing companies go about it is they definitely use the automated tools to do the initial low pass, right? Because you have to be able to scale up. But I would challenge anybody to if they were to advertise that we're going to achieve 100% code path coverage in our static source code review. Bullshit. That's just not even you're lucky if you get to 10%, because it's an incredibly huge challenge to sit there and piece through somebody else's code and work out exactly what's going on in the time allotted. I mean, this is a huge challenge, and it's not made any easier by source code analysis tools which don't have any context. This is where the human has to plug in, right? When you actually have to apply that mental effort to understand the context within what the code is running, that automated tools just cannot do.
Which is where we get DevSecOps. Yes, Paul.
Oh, he said it. Drink, everybody. He said DevSecOps.
Wow.
Bingo. Sorry. It's funny, Joff, because to a larger degree, especially when you get to organizations of scale, right, the only way that you can actually do that sort of thing is by working with teams to build good unit tests and integration tests that check for some of these things. That's like good input validation, good output encoding, connections to the database are secure, and on and on and on, right? So, unfortunately, scanning tools at the end of the day will only get you so far, but building better development practices, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, so the scanning tools are just fancified greppers is what I look at them as, right? They're like, okay, let's take the top 10 issues in any language that we think are going to cause problems. Okay, format string vulnerabilities. Okay, we can grep for that. Okay, no bounds checking on certain specific functions. We can grep for the function names. We can go ahead and build these things into a fancified
Joff, it's kind of interesting. I think Zane really kind of backed you up, and with the like WAF and RAS being kind of like the regex, and trying to scale that versus putting some intelligence with machine learning and better algorithms to accomplish those goals. I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's an analogous thing for sure, right? I mean, you have to be able to move beyond just searching through the code, and that's where the human kind of plugs in. I'll be interested to see whether code analysis as a profession, in the security space actually starts to get enhanced and complemented by artificial intelligence techniques. Drink, everybody. But I do see that
it's not. It's not just artificial. I don't think it's artificial, Joff. I think where I see the value of static tools is development teams get to define what stops a build, right? And if you can tune your static tool to say, well, like maybe 75% of what they're finding is somewhat questionable, but there's this 25% where we're like, like if it finds that, we need to stop the build, right? I kind of think, it's just like pulling stats off the top of my head, like that might be the ratio, right? Where there are a percentage, maybe a much smaller percentage of things in a static analysis tool that would stop a build. The rest of the stuff, you may have to sort through, and you're going to just determine how much time you're going to spend sorting through that stuff. But that's kind of the ratio that I kind of feel with static analysis.
Yeah, but my question is, are we going? There's fuzzers out there, for example, just to put a context around it, right? Fuzzers tend to be a very crude club-like tool, right? They may find something, but they're basically going through all possible permutations of some sort of input or interface inside of that software product, right? Are we going to see an evolution whereby a fuzzer gets to start leveraging technologies such as neural networks or decision trees, where these things start to scale up and be learning fuzzers? Then we might be onto something.
Yeah, and
right?
I would agree. That was the CTF, the automated CTF at DEF CON last year. Was very much the artificial intelligence of a fuzzing mechanism, and I think that we're starting to get there on the cutting edge. Given that the fuzzing isn't going to cut everything because there's so much time that's involved with some of that.
You're actually already seeing it. So last week, episode 22, Application Security Weekly, number 4 under Learning and Tools is Deep Exploit. It's literally machine learning with Metasploit to teach a machine to do penetration testing. Right, we're almost there when it comes to code scanning. Right, we're not very far off. The irony about the situation is last week we also covered Gentoo getting hacked and having malicious packages pushed into, or malicious code pushed in. This week we're talking about in this case Arch Linux. Next week, Paul and I are going to be talking about NPM, one of the packages inside of, I think it was Babel. It's one of the dependency packages, was popped as well, and that's a late-breaking story that's going to be on Application Security Weekly 24. So, yeah, this is like a weekly thing at this point.
Yep. And I think that speaks a lot, is that we used to pop individual software applications. Now we just need to pop the distribution methods.
Yeah, exactly. That's very well put, Larry. Larry, your story...
It's a massive issue. Just one more comment, Paul. Scaling up the patching effort once these things are discovered to cover all of the different diverse application layer paths. This is something that hasn't been addressed, and we got to give. Again, Microsoft's had a lot of really, really good efforts in this area, but not many other places have. Right? There's no way to patch a lot of these things.
And the irony here, though, Joff, more than anything else, is all 3 of these instances, as far as I can tell, are related to lack of two-factor authentication. They're all password-related breaches to developer accounts that push into a master branch, from everything I've seen so far. So just good control of your accounts that are developer accounts is, you'd think that would be easy, but apparently not.
Yeah, security hygiene, right? Okay, Paul, go.
Larry's story number 1, in closing, tricking iPhone 10 Face ID with 3D printed masks.
Yes.
Because I thought the iPhone 10 Face ID was, in my assessment, pretty good.
I thought so too. Now, this is an unconfirmed story. And there's a Vietnamese security firm, Bacov, did a blog post with a video stating that they were able to unlock the iPhone 10 with a mask with photographs pasted to the mask and some 3D printed parts around silicone and nose and that type of stuff. And they were able to use that to unlock an iPhone 10.
But doesn't iPhone 10 use heat and eye movement or something else associated with it? It's not just the texture, as I thought.
And that said, can we? Well, eye movement, maybe not. Heat? Can we simulate heat? Sure, we can simulate heat. Can we simulate facial structure? Can we simulate?
Yeah, but eye movement, right? It's not a retinal scan.
Right.
It's just looking for eye movement.
Right.
So it's not necessarily your eyes. It's just looking that there are eyes there and they're moving. If everything else matches, you could fool it, right? Yep. Potentially. I don't know. I haven't tested it.
And that said, I didn't have the story, but I saw it last week based on facial recognition type of stuff, and it was a completely oddball story that I thought, now that I'm realizing and thinking about this, that I should have added, was that defeating facial recognition, Juggalo makeup is actually some of the best.
The what makeup?
Juggalo?
What's Juggalo?
It's what male strippers, male prostitutes.
I've never been a male stripper or male prostitute before, Keith. I don't know if you're speaking from experience. I mean, good for you if you're supplementing your income. But
Insane Clown Posse has a band of followers that they refer to as Juggalos. ICP.
So now we're on Insane Clown Posse.
So who often paint their faces with clown makeup. and in some cases, due to the nature of the clown makeup that they paint, actually alters the jaw and cheekbone lines. So that by facial recognition, they are painting their face white and putting dark black lines across their chin and jaws, which alter those facial markups, which defeat facial recognition. Wow. Fuck! Now their facial recognition is going to have an ICP plugin.
As long as it's not TCP
the insane
plugins,
clown posse
okay.
attack.
Yes.
What kind of butt plug-in? What did you
Yeah,
say?
the ICP plugin.
TCP, it's network connected, Joff.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the big one on the iPhone 10 thing, it hasn't been publicly confirmed, but they've got some video out there and state that they were able to do some 3D printing of some of this stuff.
Yeah, but at what scale and what what success rate?
Exactly. And I think about this, and it's actually kind of amazing in that my wife and I were at Disney a couple days ago, and we went to the Hall of Presidents, mostly because we wanted to see what they had done with 45 for the Hall of Presidents, because last time we were there it was closed because they were including the new president. And we were there and we were reviewing the backstory about why the Hall of Presidents exists and why some of the animatronics are so lifelike, and that the researchers for Disney Imagineering spent so much time researching the people themselves that if you had a high-value target, you could spend the time researching the people themselves and their mannerisms and so forth, and they used every available source that they had to be able to build a 3D profile. So I didn't have to 3D scan your face. I could use multiple pictures of you over time to build a 3D profile of your face, to potentially build a 3D profile of your Mac, or to build a 3D profile for a mask to unlock your phone.
It's a lot of work to go through to unlock someone's phone.
Exactly. Now this
limited to high value targets.
Nation state / high value targets.
Sure, nation state to put that much time and effort and money into.
But up until 5 years ago, having a 3D printer in your home was unheard of.
Yeah, now it's available to everyone.
You got a 3D printer?
I do not.
Whoa.
I've researched them in the past. I just haven't.
I have one.
Isn't this what we call technical inflation, by the way? Didn't
Yes.
we coin that on this here podcast where, eventually all things will be possible technology-wise, and therefore, you have to plan for it accordingly?
If we didn't, we sure did now.
Sure. I think it's similar to Moore's Law.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yep.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
The opposite of technical debt, as it were.
Yes.
We should probably close it out on that note.
I think we should. On that note, Joff, thank you very much. Larry, why don't you take us out?
Oh. And out.